My husband's ex-wife won't accept me in their lives, so I had to say no to her coming into our home. When you become a stepmom, you expect challenges, but nothing prepares you for an ex who refuses to accept your place. I had to make a choice to protect my family and our home. I never imagined that saying I do would come with a side of relentless tension that clings to every corner of our lives. When I married Michael, I knew he had 2 children from his previous marriage. I understood, or so I thought, that becoming part of their lives meant walking a delicate line, one where love, patience, and understanding would be the pillars holding our new family together. But nothing prepared me for the Cold War simmering between me and Lisa Michael's ex-wife. From the very first moment Lisa realized I existed, things became complicated. The first time Michael told her about me, I wasn't yet in the picture. She called him out in a way that was loud and unmistakable, throwing accusations and hurtful words that seemed to come from a place of deep insecurity and anger. Michael was caught between 2 worlds, and I was the unwelcome bridge. It wasn't long before I became part of their lives more tangibly. We planned a family trip to visit Michael's relatives, taking the kids along with us. I thought it would be an opportunity for Lisa and me to find some common ground, to show that I wasn't here to replace her, but to support and love the children. But Lisa had other plans. She demanded the kids stay with her family and refused to let them stay with us under the same roof. I remember the night we arrived, and the tension was thick in the air. Michael tried to keep things calm, but Lisa's hostility was palpable. It felt like I was standing on a battlefield disguised as a vacation. I wanted to believe that with time, things would settle. Eventually, Lisa and I agreed to meet for coffee. I was nervous, unsure if this was going to be a truce or a trap. To my surprise, she was polite, even warm at times. We talked about the kids, the challenges of co-parenting, and the awkwardness of blending our lives. For a moment, I dared to hope we could at least tolerate each other. But that fragile peace was short-lived. Suddenly, Lisa stopped responding to my messages. She refused to acknowledge me in any setting involving the kids. It wasn't just cold shoulders, it was a refusal to even communicate. She blocked me from taking the kids to doctor appointments, even when they were sick. The only time we crossed paths was at school events or extracurricular functions, and even then she avoided me like the plague. Michael said I should try to be patient, that it was about the kids, and that over time, she might come around. I wanted to believe him, but the constant exclusion wore me down. The tension wasn't just between Lisa and me. It seeped into our home, into the way Michael and I interacted. And then came the moment that tested me the most. Our eldest son, Jake, graduated from high school. It was a milestone for all of us, a time for celebration and new beginnings. Jake asked if he could have a graduation party at our home. I was happy to host, to give him a memory he deserved. But when the subject of Lisa came up, everything became complicated again. We attended the graduation ceremony together and later the dinner. Lisa was there as expected, but she still refused to speak to me. She acted like I was invisible, like I was a stranger invading her carefully controlled world. I told Michael I was okay with Jake's party, but I couldn't bring myself to invite Lisa into our home. Allowing her in would feel like endorsing her behavior, her refusal to accept me, her attempts to push me out of their lives. Michael understood, but I could see the pain in his eyes. He wanted peace, wanted his family whole again, but I was drawing a line. Our home was sacred, and I wasn't willing to let it become a battleground. This wasn't just about me. It was about protecting the children from the chaos that threatened to tear them apart. It was about standing up for my place in their lives, even if that meant standing alone. Every day I juggled the joy of being with Jake and his sister Emily, their laughter, their innocence, with the harsh reality of an ex-wife who refused to accept me. I knew Michael loved his kids, and I loved them too. But loving them meant navigating this impossible terrain where love and resentment clashed at every turn. As I sit here reflecting on the past year and a half, I realize that blending families isn't just about merging schedules or sharing responsibilities. It's about healing wounds, building trust, and sometimes making the hardest decisions to protect what you hold dear. And this is my story. The story of a woman caught between love and loyalty, trying to find her place in a family still haunted by the past. Living with this invisible wall between Lisa and me was one of the most exhausting parts of this whole situation. Every day, I'd watch Michael juggle his roles as a father, ex-husband, and husband to me, and it tore me apart inside. He loved his kids deeply, there was no question about that, but somehow Lisa's refusal to acknowledge me was making everything more complicated than it needed to be. Our home should have been a sanctuary, a place where our blended family could come together and find comfort. Instead, it felt like a battleground, with tension lurking in every hallway. The kids were amazing. Jake with his quiet determination and sense of responsibility, and Emily bright and full of life, despite the undercurrent of adult conflict swirling around her. I adored them both, and in many ways, they were the glue holding Michael and me together. But Lisa's cold silence was like a shadow that darkened our home every time the children went back and forth between us. The custody arrangement was clear. They spent 1 week with us, 1 week with her. Shared custody, yes, but with her refusal to even talk to me, the logistics became a minefield. I remember the first time I tried to call the pediatrician's office to schedule a checkup for Emily. It was a routine thing, but Lisa's name was on some paperwork and the receptionist refused to talk to me. Only the parents listed can authorize appointments, she said. I tried to explain that Michael had given me full responsibility while the kids were with us. No luck. I had to call Michael, who had to call Lisa, who flat out refused to allow me to bring Emily in. It was infuriating and frightening. What if Emily got seriously sick? What if there was an emergency? The fact that Lisa's stubbornness put the kids' health at risk was something I struggled to wrap my head around. Michael and I talked about it often. He was torn on one hand. He wanted to keep the peace with Lisa for the kids' sake. On the other, he hated seeing me treated like an outsider in my own home. I wanted to believe things would get better, but months passed, and the silence from Lisa only grew colder. At family gatherings or school functions, the tension was palpable. Lisa would arrive late or leave early, never exchanging more than the briefest nod or forced smile with me. It was like we were actors in a play where our roles were fixed, she the unyielding ex-wife, me the unwelcome stepmother. I often wondered if Lisa hated me, or if she was just scared. Scared that I would replace her in Michael's heart, scared that the kids would love me more, or maybe scared of losing her place in their lives. Whatever it was a heavy weight dragging all of us down. One evening after the kids had gone to bed, Michael and I sat in silence. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. I finally broke the silence. I can't keep doing this, I said, voice barely above a whisper. I want to be part of this family. I want to be accepted, at least acknowledged. But Lisa won't even talk to me. Michael looked at me, eyes full of regret and helplessness. I know, he said. I hate it too. I try to mediate to keep things calm, but she's made her decision. I don't know how to fix it. That night, I cried alone in our bedroom, feeling isolated despite being surrounded by people I loved. I questioned whether I was doing the right thing by holding my ground about Lisa not being welcome in our home. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should soften for the sake of the kids. But then I thought about the subtle invasions of peace. Lisa's presence would bring the silent accusations, the cold glares, the tension that would seep into every conversation and corner. Could I really open my door to someone who refused to respect me or the family we were trying to build? Days turned into weeks. Jake's graduation party loomed closer. Invitations were sent, decorations planned, food ordered. But the question of Lisa's attendance hung like a dark cloud over everything. Michael tried to be diplomatic. I think it would be good if she came, he said one afternoon. For the kids, it might help smooth things over. I shook my head firmly. I'm sorry, Michael, but I just can't. It's our home, and I won't let it turn into a battlefield. If she wants to be part of the kids' lives, she has to find a way to respect me too. That conversation ended with no resolution. The tension between us was raw, and for the first time since we married, I wondered if this silent war would eventually tear us apart. The night before the party, I lay awake thinking about all the moments I'd been excluded, dismissed, and ignored. The anger simmered beneath the surface, but so did a deep sadness for the family we wanted, but couldn't have. When Jake's big day arrived, we prepared the house with balloons, banners, and laughter. Friends and family gathered, celebrating Jake's achievements. But the moment Lisa arrived, the atmosphere shifted. Her eyes avoided mine, and I could feel her icy presence slicing through the room like a knife. She didn't say a word to me the entire evening. Instead, she hovered near the kids, offering congratulations with a forced smile, her eyes darting around nervously. I caught Michael's gaze across the room, full of frustration, but trying to keep the peace. That night, after everyone left, I sat with Michael in the quiet living room. I'm sorry, he said softly. I wish things were different. I reached for his hand. Me too, I whispered. But I'm not going to give up on us. Because love isn't just about holding on to the good times. Sometimes it's about fighting for your place in the family, even when the past refuses to let go. The days following Jake's graduation party felt like walking on a tightrope. Every interaction, every glance, every word spoken between Lisa, Michael, and me carried the weight of unspoken tension. I found myself caught between wanting to protect our home and wanting to give the kids the peaceful, loving environment they deserved. Michael and I were growing more distant, not because we didn't love each other, but because this ongoing battle with Lisa was pulling us in different directions. He wanted to keep the peace for the kids' sake, even if it meant tolerating Lisa's behavior. I, on the other hand, wanted to defend the sanctity of our home, our family, and not let her presence poison it. One afternoon, I was helping Emily with her homework when my phone buzzed with a message from Michael. "Lisa wants to talk." The words felt like a bombshell. Lisa, the woman who had been silent and distant for so long, suddenly wanted to talk. My heart raced, with a mix of hope and skepticism. Could this be a turning point, or was it another trap? I called Michael immediately. "Are you serious?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes," he said. "She said she wants to meet somewhere neutral. No kids, just us." I took a deep breath. "All right, when tomorrow afternoon?" The next day arrived with a storm of nerves swirling inside me. Michael and I agreed to meet Lisa at a small cafe downtown, a neutral ground just as she requested. When I arrived, Lisa was already there sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. She looked tired, more human than the cold, unapproachable woman I'd been battling with. For a moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "Hi," I said, cautiously sitting down across from her. "Hi," she replied, her voice soft, almost hesitant. The silence stretched between us before Lisa finally spoke. "I know we haven't been on the best terms," she said, looking down at her cup. "And I want to try to fix that for the kids." I nodded slowly. "I want that too." Lisa sighed deeply. "It's been hard for me, seeing you in their lives, in our lives. It feels like I'm losing my place. I didn't know how to handle it." Her words struck a chord deep inside me. I hadn't realized how much she was hurting, how threatened she felt. "I'm not trying to replace you," I said gently. "I just want to be part of their lives, in a way that's respectful for all of us." We talked for what felt like hours, sharing fears, frustrations, and hopes. For the first time, Lisa opened up about her struggles as a mother, trying to navigate a blended family, her fears of being pushed out, and her desire to still be a strong presence in her children's lives. I shared my own fears of being an outsider, of being rejected, of the fragile balance that held our family together. By the end of the conversation, something shifted. It wasn't a miracle fix, but it was a start, a small step towards understanding, and maybe someday acceptance. Back at home, Michael noticed the change too. "You look different," he said when I walked in that evening. "More hopeful." "I am," I admitted. "Maybe this is the beginning of something better, but real life doesn't always follow the script we want." The next day, Lisa sent a message to Michael saying she wasn't ready to come into our home just yet. She needed more time. It was disappointing, but I understood. Trust and acceptance don't happen overnight. Still, I was determined to keep fighting, not against Lisa, but for the family we all wanted to be. The kids noticed the tension too. Emily asked me one evening, "Mom, why doesn't Lisa like you?" I looked at her, my heart aching. "It's complicated, sweetie," I said softly. "But I promise you, I love you both very much, and I want us all to be happy together." Jake, on the other hand, was more reserved. He often stayed quiet during family discussions, watching from the sidelines. I knew he was caught between two worlds, trying to keep the peace. One night, Michael and I had a serious talk. "I don't want the kids to feel like they have to choose," he said. "But I'm scared this is tearing us apart." "I'm scared too," I said. "But I also know I can't keep living like this with someone who refuses to respect me or the family we're building." We held each other tightly, knowing the road ahead would be tough, but also knowing we had to face it together. The fragile truce between Lisa and me was more like a thin thread, stretched too tight. Every interaction felt like a test of patience and strength. She wasn't ready to step into our home, but she was still very much a part of our lives, shadowing every moment with the kids. Michael and I had tried to keep things civil, but the distance between us was growing. We both wanted what was best for the kids, yet the strain of this unspoken war was slowly eating away at our relationship. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Michael and I sat in the living room, the silence louder than any argument. "I can't keep pretending this is okay," I finally said, my voice trembling. Her refusing to acknowledge me, refusing to let me care for the kids when they're sick. It's not just about me. It's about the family. Michael rubbed his temples, exhaustion written all over his face. I know, he said quietly. But what can we do? I don't want to force her or make things worse. I looked at him, frustration bubbling over. We can't keep living like this. I want to protect our home. I want to protect us. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with worst-case scenarios and impossible choices. How far should I push? How much should I endure? The next morning brought a new crisis. Emily had a high fever. When I called Lisa to let her know, hoping she would be involved, the silence on the other end was deafening. I don't want you bringing them to the doctor, Lisa said coldly. If you can't handle it, maybe you shouldn't be in their lives. I felt like the ground beneath me cracked open. How could a mother say that Michael stood by me, but even he seemed unsure how to handle Lisa's coldness? As the weeks passed, Lisa's hostility grew. She wouldn't communicate, wouldn't meet us halfway. Instead, she showed up unexpectedly at school events, glaring at me as if I was an intruder in her world. One afternoon, after picking up the kids from soccer practice, I found Lisa waiting outside the field. "Why are you here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm here for my kids," she said sharply. "You're not their mother." The words stung like a slap. "I'm not trying to replace you," I said quietly. "But I'm part of their lives now, whether you like it or not." Lisa's eyes narrowed. "You think you can just step in and take over? This isn't your family." I wanted to scream to tell her to leave, but I swallowed the words. Instead, I took a deep breath. "No, Lisa, it's not about taking over. It's about being there for the kids. And if you can't see that, maybe we need to rethink how we handle this." That evening, Michael and I had a long talk, the kind where silence speaks louder than words. "We need to set boundaries," I said. "For us, for the kids, for our home." Michael nodded slowly. "But how do we enforce them without tearing everyone apart?" "We start by protecting our home," I said firmly. "I'm done letting her disrespect me or our family." The decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. We agreed on one thing: Lisa would not be invited into our home anymore. Any visits would have to happen elsewhere, neutral ground where she wouldn't upset the balance we were trying to maintain. The news hit the kids hard. Jake especially struggled with the idea that his mom wouldn't be coming over anymore. "Why can't mom come here?" he asked one night, his voice small. I hugged him close. "Sometimes adults have problems that are hard to fix," I said softly. "But we're still a family, and we love you no matter what." Emily nodded sleepily. "I just want everyone to be happy," she whispered. I wished I could promise her that. But the truth was, I didn't know if things would ever be happy again. The cracks in our family were deep, and I wasn't sure if they could be mended. Michael and I held on to each other, hoping our love and determination would be enough to weather the storm. Yet deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The day of Jake's graduation party arrived, and with it, a storm of emotions I wasn't prepared for. This wasn't just a celebration of his achievement. It felt like the battleground, where everything we'd been holding on to would be tested. The house was bustling with family friends, laughter filling the rooms. Decorations hung in bright colors, and the scent of freshly baked cake wafted through the air. Jake was glowing with pride, surrounded by those who loved him. But beneath all the joy, I could feel the tension simmering just beneath the surface. Michael had been quiet all afternoon, his jaw tight as he moved through the crowd, exchanging polite nods, but never quite relaxing. I knew he was bracing himself for the inevitable. The biggest question hung in the air like a shadow: would Lisa come? She hadn't responded to our invitations, or rather, I hadn't extended a direct invitation. I made it clear to Michael from the beginning that I would not welcome her into our home. It was my line in the sand. As guests mingled, I found myself watching the door, my heart pounding each time it opened. And then the moment arrived. Lisa walked in unannounced, her eyes cold and calculating. She held herself like a woman who belonged nowhere, yet demanded to be seen everywhere. The room fell silent for a beat, the atmosphere shifting instantly. I stood up slowly, facing her. "Lisa," I said, voice steady but firm, "this is Jake's celebration. We want it to be about him, not the past." She gave me a glare that was almost venomous. "I'm his mother," she said sharply. "I'm coming in whether you like it or not." Michael stepped in beside me. "Lisa, this isn't the place for this," he said quietly. "Please respect the boundaries we've set." But she wasn't done. "I'm not here to argue," she snapped. "I'm here for my kids." The tension was so thick, I could almost cut it with a knife. Jake came over, confused by the sudden silence and the charged faces. "Mom," he asked, looking between Lisa and me. His words hung heavy in the room. I saw the conflict in Jake's eyes, the love he held for both of us, caught in the middle of a war he didn't ask for. I took a deep breath, forcing calm into my voice. "Jake, this is your day. Let's focus on you." Lisa scoffed, but didn't say more. As the party went on, I noticed her staying mostly to herself, but her presence was a constant reminder of the tension that had been simmering for months. Later that night, after the guests left and the house was quiet again, Michael and I sat in the living room, the weight of the evening settling over us. "I can't keep doing this," Michael admitted. "It's tearing me apart, I know," I said, softly. "But we have to keep fighting for the kids, for our family." The truth was, I was exhausted. Exhausted from the constant battle, the emotional roller coaster, the feeling that I was always defending my place. But I also knew I couldn't give up, because this wasn't just about me or Lisa. It was about the family we were trying to build. The morning after Jake's graduation party was eerily quiet. The remnants of last night's celebration lay scattered across the living room, empty plates, half-deflated balloons, and the faint echo of laughter from hours before. But the silence felt heavier than any noise could have been. Michael and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the space between us thick with unspoken words. The events of the night had left us both raw, vulnerable, and exhausted. I never wanted it to come to this. Michael began, voice rough. "I thought we could find a way to make it work, all of us together for the kids, but it feels like every step forward ends in 2 steps back." I nodded, swallowing the lump forming in my throat. "Lisa's bitterness isn't just about me," I said quietly. "It's about the past, the life she lost. But it's destroying the present, and it's breaking our family apart." Michael reached out, taking my hand in his. "We have to decide what matters most, our home, our kids, and us." The days that followed were filled with difficult conversations. Michael reached out to Lisa again, attempting to open a dialogue not for our sake, but for the children's. But the walls she built around herself remained unyielding. One afternoon, Jake pulled me aside. "Mom, I just want us all to get along," he said, his voice tinged with a sadness that cut deeper than any argument between adults. His words hit me harder than I expected. I realized then that the family we were trying to protect was being torn apart from the inside, not just by Lisa's resentment, but by all the anger, fear, and misunderstandings between us. I knew I had to try something different. I invited Lisa over not to argue but to talk. I laid everything on the table, my fears, my frustrations, my hopes. For the first time, she listened without interrupting. She spoke about her pain, her fears of losing her children's love, and her struggle to accept this new chapter in their lives. It wasn't an instant fix, far from it, but it was a start. We agreed to put the kids first, to try to co-parent with respect and kindness. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, moments of doubt, and raw emotions. But for the first time in a long while, there was hope. As the months passed, the tension between us eased, replaced by a cautious understanding. Jake and his siblings began to feel the difference, their smiles more genuine, their laughter more frequent. Michael and I found strength in each other, not just as partners, but as co-parents committed to building a family that could weather storms. Looking back, I realized that protecting my home wasn't about keeping Lisa out. It was about creating a space where love and respect could grow even in difficult circumstances. Because family isn't just about blood or history, it's about the choices we make every day. And in the end, that choice was mine.